And so I thought, okay, if I don't hit a point to where like there's leads or anything along those lines after 6 months, then I'm taking a bet on me. And I remember I got two specific rejections. I got really good at accepting rejection, and it actually feels good now that I'm used to that and it's become comfortable, and I'm able to sit with that rejection and not take it personally. But there were two specific rejections that came like a day apart that really launched it. One of them I had submitted to Harlequin, and I had also submitted to just my dream agent. And I felt really, really good about at least one of those working out. And then I got rejections on both almost in like a day apart. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. I am ready to forge ahead and do this on my own.
Hello, and welcome to So I Wrote a Book, Now What? Where writers chat about writing. My guest today is K.L. Parsons. She is the indie romance author behind the Stranded in Leavenworth series, which includes Love by a Landslide, Love Under Snowfall, and her latest book, Love on a Ledge, comes out June 3rd. I'm so excited for you to hear all about what we talked about. We went into her self-publishing journey, her whole journey as a writer, and everything in between. So let's get into it. Hi, Katherine. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm excited to be here.
So what made you decide to write a book?
You know, I've been an avid romance reader for a long time, probably longer than I should have been, starting at a young age. But so anyways, I read a lot. And a couple of years ago, I was reading a romance novel in bed, and I got to a point to where I was just thinking like, man, I wish this would have ended differently. And I expressed that to my husband. We talk about, the books we read quite often. I told him, I'm like, man, I saw this book going this way, and I'm kind of disappointed that it went that way. And he looks at me, he's like, well, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I don't know if you know the meme that's online where there's this blonde woman. She does kind of this like, no, I could, no, maybe. Um, it's just, it's something that it made me think of that, because I was like, no, I couldn't do that. Oh, could I? Maybe not, maybe. And so I had just come off of graduating with or not my bachelor's, excuse me, with my master's, and I'd just written my thesis. And I thought, well, if I can write something that's super boring, maybe I could write something that's fun. So then I just started playing with it, and here we are.
I'm so curious, what was your master's in?
It was I went to law school at UW, but it wasn't to get a JD. It was a master's in jurisprudence. So it was in effort to bolster my human resources career. So yeah, it was law school, but I was with
Cool.
I was in class with a bunch of lawyers or a bunch of like future lawyers. And it was super
Right?
intimidating, but it was pretty cool, and it was really good in boosting confidence. But uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Very cool. So was Love by a Landslide your first book you ever wrote then?
yes, yes, it is.
When you started, did you just dive in or did you start with an outline?
So I kind of started doing just the words on page. I had no idea what I was doing. I still kind of sometimes feel like I don't know what I'm doing,
Same.
except for taking it one step at a time. But yeah, I just sat down and I was like, let's just like mock this up. What would it look like? And so I kind of did an outline, a real sloppy outline, to where sometimes it would be like, and then they do this, and then the other ones, like a whole scene would come to mind, and I'd fill that all in. But yeah, I just started with the outline and then just kind of flushed it out from there and kept building and building and rereading and rewriting and until it became what it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you started filling it in, did you have a routine where you like wrote the same time every day, or did you like write in bits and pieces here and there when you could?
I wrote when I could. So I've got a 6-year-old. At that point, he would have been, I started, let's see, he would have been maybe 3, I think when I started. And so having a having a 3-year-old definitely was the what dictated when and where and how I wrote. And so often I would just be sitting like while he'd be watching, Sesame Street or something, I'd be sitting there next to him on the couch with my laptop and just like writing what I could when I could. So I didn't really develop any kind of routine. Honest, I'm going to be honest. I don't really have a routine because even though he's in school, he's in first grade now. I still have other responsibilities that I have that kind of get in the way, and so I don't really have a routine. If it were my perfect world, I'd write from when I woke up until maybe like 2 o'clock because I feel like that's when I'm the most productive. But sometimes the only thing I can do is get him to bed and then right after he goes to sleep when my brain's only half there. So
Yeah,
I wish I had a routine, but I've not created one at this point.
totally. I also have a young child, and I find it very motivating sometimes, though, the unpredictability of when you get to write. It's like a living Pomodoro method, but you don't know when it's gonna go off.
Yeah. You take advantage when you can.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So then once you had your draft put together, where did you go from there?
So I had read somewhere, I'd started listening to different, podcasts and reading a little bit about craft since I'd never I was new to writing. Um,
Mhm.
And one of the things that I kept coming across was after you finish your first draft, like after you feel like you've got a pretty solid first draft, put it away and do something else for a couple of months. So I was like, all right, sounds good. So I did that and I started working on my second book, playing with that a little bit and just completely ignored my first one. And so I was still under I was still under this delusion that I was going to pull out this first draft and be like, "Oh my gosh, it's so great. It's wonderful. I'm so excited. It's almost done." And I pull it out and I read it and I'm like, "What is this garbage? This is so bad." And I was like, "Why is it so bad?" And so one of the craft books that I found was called Romancing the Beat. And it's my favorite. It's one that I go to quite often.
I love it.
And
These cards are the beats
yeah,
behind me.
yeah. And I realized that I was missing my complete third act. And I'm like, I have read so many romance novels. I started reading romance when I was 12. You'd think that I would like notice that there was something that was wrong. And so I went in and I played with it again and then was able to create, I guess at that point, it would have been a second or third draft that kind of fit that natural flow of what a romance novel is.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, just kept tinkering with it and tinkering with it.
Did you always know that you wanted to go the self-publishing route?
Not necessarily. So originally I thought that I would aim for going the traditionally published route. And I gave myself a timeline. So I'm a relatively impatient person. I don't like the hurry up and wait mentality. It doesn't sit with me. So I gave myself 6 months of querying and waiting and querying and waiting. And then, of course, working on another project while I was doing that as well. And so I thought, okay, if I don't hit a point to where like there's leads or anything along those lines after 6 months, then I'm taking a bet on me. And I remember I got two specific rejections. I got really good at accepting rejection, and it actually feels good now that I'm used to that, and it's become comfortable, and I'm able to sit with that rejection and not take it personally. But there were two specific rejections that came like a day apart that really launched it. One of them I had submitted to Harlequin. And I had
Hmm.
also submitted to just my dream agent. And I felt really, really good about at least one of those working out. And then I got rejections on both almost in like a day apart. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. I am ready to forge ahead and do this on my own.
How did you learn how to do it on your own? Because it seems like there's a lot involved.
Yes. There is a lot involved, and it's been a learn as I go kind of situation. There's still a lot of things that I'm learning. And even as I'm getting ready to publish book three as well, there's just so much. And so I started, um, reading different things that I found online. I joined a lot of groups on social media that were focused on self-publishing. And some of them were specific to romance, which was really, really helpful because it's just I just feel like each genre is a different beast. And so I was able to find some really great groups and get suggestions and ideas and all of that. But two of the things that I put a lot of resources in was the editing of the book and the cover design of the book. Those were the two things that I wasn't going to skimp on. I could figure everything else out on my own, but those are the two things that I know. Like you judge a book by its cover. Like
Mhm.
it's just the reality of it. And solid covers are going to draw people in. And then editing, like people are vicious on reviews and online if there's typos, and I am not a grammar gal. Like that is
Yeah.
I'm not good with grammar, punctuation. I use probably three times as many commas as I should,
I
em
yeah.
dashes
I
everywhere.
am opposite.
Oh,
I use
really?
not enough commas. I'm like, who needs a comma?
I'm like everywhere I should take a breath, I'm gonna add a comma. And so, yeah, it just, so I found a great cover designer and I found a great, editor, and they're phenomenal. I'm gonna keep working with them as long as they'll have me. But I wasn't willing to script on those.
Yeah, that is so true, and your covers are so cute.
Thank you,
Um,
I love
I
them.
love them. Did you get because it's like there's like a range, right? Of like what you can get if you're going to self-publish. Did you go and get like a developmental editor and a copy editor and a proofreader, or did you get a copy editor and proofread yourself, or did it even need a developmental edit? Do you know what I'm saying? There's like
Mhm.
so many.
Yeah, it was going into it, I was thinking, I'm like, man, there's all these different edits they talk about, the developmental and the proofread and just line editing. And it's like, oh my gosh, what do I need? What do I need? And so I was really lucky. I had a few people in my circle. One person that I found again on one of the social media groups that I was in, to do beta reading for me. And so she was really great. She's been phenomenal, and she's still working, trying to work the trad route. And I just know like once she takes a chance on herself or once somebody takes a chance on her, like she's going to do phenomenally. But anyways, she was able to help me a lot with that, like the story development and give her thoughts. And she was I don't want to say brutal because she wasn't. I could have used more, you know, little more brute in that, but she was super supportive and like, well, this isn't working. I don't know why he's doing this or why is she doing this. And so it really helped me to think about it. And then I've got a couple other girlfriends who are also pretty avid romance readers. One of them actually gave me my very first romance at 12 when I wasn't supposed to have one. But anyways, so they read through it as well and were willing to give me feedback again, like people that I have closest to me that are willing to be rough and tell me like it is. And that helped a lot with the developmental edit. And I, I I'm super stubborn. I want my story to be how I want it. And
Mhm,
while I'm down to take feedback and guidance from people, like if I've got a vision as an artist, like I feel like that vision needs to come to fruition. It needs to be, and if it doesn't, then it feels inauthentic to me. So
mhm,
I didn't go with the developmental edit because I wanted my book to be me. And
mhm,
and so what I sprung for was like the line editing and proofing for disbursement. Um
mhm,
and in my mind, for me, I felt pretty confident in my story arc and everything that was going on, that I didn't feel like I needed the developmental edit. And if I did, then I don't know. I just wanted to save save that money and
yeah.
just went the route of making sure that like the grammar and the punctuation and like the overall like making sense of line by line was a little bit more important.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. And if you had input from other people too, it's kind of like how you read the romance that inspired you to write a romance and you wanted it to end differently, but that's how the author wanted it to end.
Yes,
Sometimes
yes.
when you get like a developmental edit, that's how they envision your book, but it might not be how you envision your book.
Mhm.
So it's so tricky.
It is. It is. And I felt like the story was at least decent, like it was fun. I was enjoying writing it. I was enjoying reading it. And then I got decent feedback from my girlfriends and then from my beta reader, I guess critique partner is more what she was, or and still is. Um, that I just felt pretty confident in my story, you know.
Hmm. So then when you released it, um, did you release the second one pretty quickly after? Because I've heard different varying advice on that. Like some people say that once you release a self-published book, right, that you need to do the other one within like the next 3 months. And then some people say that that advice is changing a little bit. What was your release schedule like, or did you have it set when you released the first one?
I didn't have it set ahead of time, but because anytime I took a breath on the first one, I was working on the second one. I had that one pretty far along by the time the first one was published. So by the time Love by a Landslide was available for purchase, um, Love Under Snowfall was like almost there. And so that just I don't want to say that just happened because that sounds like there was no effort put into it, but it was just kind of how it naturally progressed. And so I was like, okay, when do I want to release this? Well, it's a winter themed story, so if I want it to be relevant, like nobody some people do. Generally, the masses don't want to read a winter in spring. Like they want to read
Mhm.
one as it's, getting close to that season because they're starting to feel cozy and they're like, oh yeah, okay, we want to, read something that's relevant to the time. And so it was important for me to get that out because the first one's summer based and then the second one is winter based. And so it was important that I get it out there at that time. But I didn't really create any set schedule. I tried to create a set schedule then for my third book. I wanted that one to come out in February, and in fact, I was so confident that that would happen. That in book two, like how it has, other works by this author. I
Right.
wrote in there February 2025. And so I had to go in there and black that out in the physical copies that I have because things just didn't go according to plan. So um, I've tried, I'd like to have things planned out, but sometimes just life doesn't work that way. But I am glad that I got those first two done relatively close together because when I go to events, I've got two books on my table as opposed to just one. So that way it just feels like there's a little bit more to choose from, even though it's a series and you know, they
Yeah.
follow each other.
What can I ask? And if you don't want to answer, that's totally fine. What derailed the third book?
Just some life things. I think this last fall was maybe tricky for a lot of people. And so there was definitely some preoccupation with, political things,
Hmm.
a lot of focus on that. Some health things kind of cropped up too. And then just, I think the pressure of having set a deadline. I don't, another reason why I'm really glad that I've done the self-publishing route is that I think the pressure of having an editor saying or an agent saying like, "Hey, you need to have this done at this certain time," it makes my little rebellious mind go, "Oh, well, you're not the boss of me." And so I
Even
think
when it's you.
exactly, even when it's me. And so I set my timeline, and then it was like this, "Oh, I've got this much time. Oh, now I have only this much time." And so there were just so many things that kind of compounded that I was like, I need to get out of my head. I need to accept that it's not going to be out by February, and that's okay. Like, it's not like something awful is going to happen. I just had to accept it and know that that's going to be pushed out a little bit. But,
Hmm.
life happens.
Yes, it certainly does. Um, would you say then your writing felt stuck, or was it just that you weren't able to get to it?
I wasn't able to get my brain into it. I wasn't able
Hmm.
to give it the dedication that I needed. I would hop in and start writing and then get distracted by a million
Hmm.
other things. But it's like I would let myself get distracted. I wouldn't set myself up to be like, okay, phone in the other room plugged in. We've got this going on, got this out of the way. Okay, I've got water right here. I've got all the things. I got some snacks. Like
Right.
I wouldn't set myself up. And I think I was just struggling in a few different ways that it just I needed to be able to give myself a break, but because I'd set that deadline for myself, I sort of had set myself up to be in this like rush, 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 panic, panic, panic kind of thing.
Yeah,
So, lesson learned, I won't ever
totally.
put in a book when a book's coming out until it's ready.
What helps you kind of get out of that kind of like panic mode? Because I've definitely been there. Where, and then I do the same thing where I let myself get distracted, and there's a million things that I could do. I could clean my house, I could clean my bathtub, I could, do 10 million loads of laundry again. What helped you kind of get back into your story?
I gave myself some grace. Um, as kind of wishy-washy as that sounds, I took the pressure of the deadline off. So I accepted it's not coming out at that time, and that's okay. And then I gave myself the grace of like there's stuff going on and things that I can control and a lot that I can't. And so I just need to accept that since I can't control everything, that I need to give myself some grace that I'm not going to be at my like optimum best right now. And so I let it be since I took that pressure off of the deadline. And since I gave myself grace and understanding that what you can do, it really kind of like let me relax into it. And then I was able to flow a little bit better into the
Mhm.
process. And so it just felt it kind of brought the fun and the relaxation of it back, as opposed to the get it done, get it done, get it done that it had been feeling like. It'd been feeling more like more like work and less like the fun crafting creativity that I love so much about it.
Mm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not always the best at giving myself grace, but I try.
The practice, it's hard. It's really
Yeah.
hard.
What has been the most rewarding thing for you about self-publishing?
Oh, wow. There's there's a lot of really rewarding elements of it. Just having created it and holding it in my hands, that was a really cool experience of when I showed up and it's like, oh my gosh, this is a book. It's a thing. It didn't exist and now it does. It's so exciting. And so that was really cool. And then, like to some extent, uh, it, for a little bit, I was reading reviews. I don't read reviews anymore. I just keep track of like the number of reviews and kind of
Mhm.
like where it trends, but I don't read the reviews so much anymore because that's not my space. I've learned that that's not where I need to go and get my feedback. That's, I can get that elsewhere. But doing different events in my area I've really loved because they'll be readers that will come up that have been like, I've read this one, it was so much fun, I loved it, and that's been super rewarding too, just knowing that like I gave somebody a slice of fun and joy for a while, that was
Yeah.
really great. And then it's been really cool because my son who, like I said, who's 6, and then my niece who is 10, they have both been talking about like wanting to be authors when they grow up. And like, who knows, I've wanted to be a million things in all of my life, and that'll probably change a million times. But just like the fact that they see me doing something that's like fun and creative and just really enjoyable, and they're like, oh, maybe I could do that too. So there've just been a lot of different rewarding things that all add up, and it's just fun. It's just a good
Yeah.
time.
That's awesome. How do you set up your events? Do you contact the venues? Because it seems like you do a lot of events.
I do. I do. It is like it's a hunting session to find all the different local events. But so some of it is word of mouth. Like there've been some that I've done that someone's been like, "Hey, did you hear that they're doing this, that, or the other at this place near you?" And it's like, "Oh, I didn't," and then reaching out and getting, seeing if I can get included into that. And then also I've just joined a lot of the different like social media groups of different like bookstores, different event like companies that do different bookish style events. I'm a part of the Emerald City Romance Writers group. And so theirs was the first event that I did, which was really fun. But then it's like word of mouth. Like people talk about, oh, have you gone to this one? Have you gone to that one? And then you see online when there's different events. And so some of it, like you have to, apply for and hope that they select you. Um,
Mhm.
and then other ones, it's kind of like, oh yeah, we've got room for everybody, come on out and everything. So, yeah, the events are a lot of fun. I've only done one where I've like reached out to a bookstore. It was one in Tacoma, King's Books, and it
Okay.
was we set up kind of a kind of a signing, kind of a like book release kind of day. But I'm like, man, no one's going to show because nobody knows me. But and a lot of like loved ones showed up, and there's this influencer, her name's Alana, and she's fantastic, and she showed up and she's been really like pushing my stuff hard and has been just
Nice.
phenomenal. So the events are worth it for anybody who's self-publishing, even if you're not so much like the extrovert and wanting to socialize and all of that. Getting out there and chatting with people, man, that's where I make my sales, is like at those events as opposed to like the online sales. So it's worth it and they're
Wow.
fun.
I, um, that is surprising to me. Because, like, I would think if I was just thinking, I would think Kindle Unlimited would probably be. Are you on the Unlimited program?
I am. Yes. Yes.
But it must be different than, because, like, they don't know you because there's probably so much on Kindle
There's
Unlimited.
so many. You're inundated with like, I don't know, probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of books. And how do you choose? And it's like, and then you download a bunch in on your Kindle, and then you're like, which one am I going to read? What do I feel in the mood for? Like, especially if you're a mood reader, but when people come to the events, there might be 8 vendors, there might be 50 vendors, but still, if you only pick up books from 5 of these places, and then if you pick up a book from somebody that you've met and you've chatted with and who's like sold you on their book, then you're like, probably going to read them. And then you've got your book
Hmm.
trophies too, like
Yeah.
you come back from your events and then people share about it there. Like there's such a big online, at least I know this with like romance readers, there's such a big online community of people who love to read romance and who've just fallen in love with it and found this community that they can connect with, even if they don't have any romance readers in their own home or in their own physical communities. And like everyone just bolsters each other up, they lift each other up, and it's so cool. And so those face-to-face interactions are like bringing that in real life. And they're so impactful, and they boost sales. They've been really great for that.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
What has been the most challenging part of self-publishing?
um Justifying the cost. We were raised to shop the clearance racks and try and get the best deal and all of that, and often my husband will sit me down and be like, look, this is an investment. It's okay to spend money on something that is an investment. That's like, that's true. It's true. I get that. So really just loosening the purse strings and justifying the cost of those, like the cover design and the editing and those kinds of things. And then the advertising too. It's not cheap.
Where do you advertise at?
So a few different places. I've done like Facebook ads, I've done Amazon ads. Something that I've found that has been the most beneficial, and this only works if somebody has two or more books. It doesn't really, I take it back. I take it back. It can still be beneficial and useful for somebody who just has one book. But there's a lot of different um, virtual events that will go on that'll be like free book blast or stuff your Kindle days or those kinds of things. If an author, a self-published author can get in with those groups and have their book included in that,
Mhm.
um, that's massively beneficial in like building the number of reviews that you have and readership and all of that, even if there is just one book, because if you're trying to build like your reviews, your stars, and all of that, then that helps to get the book in people's hands so that way they're more likely to read it when maybe they wouldn't have taken a chance on you to begin with.
Mhm.
But what I tend to do in that instance is I also go and connect with like I'm blanking out, like the Fussy Librarian and Free Booksy and Red Feather Romance and those kinds of like newsletter based um, promo kind of advertisements, and I'll pay for like a bundle of a couple of those, and then it gets sent out in email form saying, "Hey, guess what? This book is free right now. Pick it up." And then I see like my numbers skyrocket, and then it will inevitably result in sales with book two as well. And then
Mhm.
pre-orders into book three is what I'm seeing. But then also an increase in reviews too. So those are kind of my main methods for advertising at this point.
Yeah. Before you put out your books, do you send ARCs out to build the reviews before it's out, or did you use NetGalley?
Both. I used both. So I went through NetGalley, and originally I wasn't going to because it's pricey. But
It
if you
is.
can find a co-op to go through, it's a lot cheaper. And so I can justify $55 for a month run, as
Mhm.
opposed to, like $600 a year. That's was a little too much for me to bite off, but especially since I wouldn't have enough books to really make that worth it. But finding a co-op is really, really helpful when it comes to NetGalley. That got me a lot of reviews. Um, and then, yeah, I put out again in those social media groups, I put out calls for ARC readers and people reached out. One tip that I will say to help kind of prevent against piracy in those instances, because you always have to worry about that. You don't know if somebody's saying, oh, I want your book. And then they put it out places. Um,
Mhm.
but a way to prevent against that is I was taught to make the file that you send them in EPUB, ask them specifically for their Kindle or e-reader email and send it to that email, because then it
Mm.
can't be downloaded anywhere else. Or if it can, like, it takes some work. It's not just an
Right.
easy, point click, send it here. It goes straight to their Kindle or e-reader. So I found that that's super beneficial. But yeah, I'm getting ready to reach out to all of my like past ARC readers for book three to say, hey, excited?
That's so
You want to
exciting.
read it?
Do you have plans already for book four?
Yeah, I do. So book three rounds out my series for now. Anyways, I might do a spinoff series later, but it's going to end the Stranded and Leavenworth series. It's funny. I was talking with my husband about this yesterday, that I've got four different ideas that I'm not sure exactly what I want to do yet, but there's just, it's a wealth of options and ideas. It's a good problem to have, but I've got to
Yeah.
I've got to start figuring out what I'm gonna do next.
Yeah. Where do you get your inspiration?
Um, gosh, that's hard. Um, I just it just comes to me. I know that that's I'm I've always been very imaginative. I've got a really good imagination. My son's following suit in that big time, which is really exciting to see. But like, I don't know, just thoughts will come to my head. Like, I'll be in a situation. Obviously the series that I am finishing up it's an outdoorsy adventure kind of thing. And I was always the kid who was playing in the woods that was like pretending I was lost and stuck in the woods and how am I going to survive? And so I think a lot of those elements just kind of played together, and like, what if this happened? I love Leavenworth. What if this happened? What if this happened? And so some of those what ifs, I guess, just kind of stuck with me. And Some of them are able to be fleshed out into something, and others are just, you know, fleeting thoughts that drift away.
Do you write your ideas down when they come to you, or do you just kind of do they just live in your head?
I don't write them down right away. And I'm sure I'd have a lot more if I did, but I think if one lingers for a while, then like they, that saying of something living rent free in your brain, there
Hmm.
it just kind of stays there. And it's like, okay, I'm ready to write this idea down. And then at that point, once I've written, like the idea, the fact that I'm gonna do a project, um, then I'll start writing down different thoughts about that project that'll come to mind. But just like the general idea, I let it kind of float around, and if it sticks, it sticks. If I feel like if it sticks, it's something worth writing.
Right. Yeah. I always debate on whether I should write every little idea that comes to me down because I know I lose them, but I don't.
Yeah, there's definitely been times when something's flitted through my head, when I haven't had a chance to write it down, and later I'm like, gosh, what was that? Like, I was in the shower, and what was that thing I was thinking?
Mhm.
But
Yeah, they come and they go.
yeah, they do.
Are there any other craft books that have really helped you on your journey? You mentioned Romancing the Beat by Gwen Hayes. Is that her name? I'm pretty sure that's who wrote it.
I think that's right. Yeah.
But are there any others that have been particularly helpful?
Um, Not, I haven't really read many. Like I've just kind of been going, freewheeling it, I guess. But that one I've listened to multiple times, and that's been really helpful and beneficial. But yeah, I haven't. I'd love to say that I've read, like Save the Cat and the Hero's Journey and all these different things, but I just I just haven't. I've done a lot of, you know, research online and read a lot of things that give suggestions and guidance and all of that, but no, I've just been sort of plugging away and playing, and yeah, it's all theory until you actually get it on page, right?
Some craft books make it seem very simple. And then you're
Yeah.
like, this is not how this was supposed to go.
Yeah. Yes.
That's not what the book said.
Well, and it's, if you find yourself in too rigid of a structure, then the creativity doesn't blossom as well. And so I like to throw everything at it and then prune it down as needed.
Hmm. How many drafts do you usually go through on a manuscript?
Um, I go through a lot. And so I do kind of an, we'll call it an outline just for lack of a better word, my throw it all on the page outline, and then the first draft, which is by far the hardest thing in the whole wide world, is writing it into being, but I've had to tell myself, okay, it's okay if it's garbage. Its job is to exist, and that's all it needs to do. Um, and then I'll go through and do maybe two, three, four, maybe around five-ish drafts before I send it to um like my girlfriends to read, to get kind of their feedback. So I'll send it to them when it's about 80% ready, and then get their vibe on it. But what I do is, like, the kinds of the drafts I do, I'll do different versions, to where I'll write the first draft, and then I'll just reread it on the computer and go through and edit it, and then I'll make it into an EPUB file and send it to my Kindle and read it there. And then I'll go through and edit it again on my computer, and then I'll print it out on paper. And then that, because it all, I feel like in each iteration, I find different things that I focus on more, that need to be adjusted more, um, depending on what format it comes in. So I'd say I do probably close to 10 or so drafts. Um, some of them are big overhauls, and some are tweaks and adjustments and all that.
I do think that that's interesting how different uh things read depending on what format it's in, like Kindle versus your computer versus paper. it
Mhm.
it does feel like it accesses like a different part of your brain.
hmm I
And you're like,
also
how
tend
did
to
I not
do.
see that?
I know it's wild. It's wild. Even font or spacing. So my
Mhm.
editor likes double space, which is great for her, but it doesn't look like a book to me. It looks like a paper to me. And so then in my mind, I start thinking, I getting into like that technical paper mode, and
Hmm.
my writing goes back to law school, to where it's like, okay, no, it's it's okay to have conjunctions, and it's okay to have
Right.
like thoughts, and it's okay to have some swear words in there, like it's
Right.
it's okay. um and so uh I also tend to read a draft out loud to myself as well, because it also sounds very different when you read it out loud as opposed to in your head, because in your head you can make it sound how you want it to sound, but when you say
Mhm.
it, it's like you can't escape how it sounds potentially to somebody else, if that makes any sense at all.
Thank you so much for being here and for telling me all
Oh,
about your process. I know I kind of picked your brain a lot on the specifics of self publishing, but I feel like it's such a daunting thing for people that are thinking about trying it. In some instances, it seems like super easy, like some people make it, and once you actually read all the things, it also seems super daunting.
mhm.
So it was nice to hear that maybe it's somewhere in between.
Yeah. I think the big key is finding your resources and finding a community that's able to support you, because even though writing is such a solo activity, there are so many things that it's so crucial to find people to support you on it. Whether it's friends or a writing group, beta readers, I, people to just bounce ideas off of. It's super important to have that community of support, because writing in a vacuum is going to be, I think, a little less colorful, a little less, vibrant. So it's it's a tough activity. It's a the whole self-publishing thing is, it's scary, it is daunting. But if you find that support, it makes it a little less so.
That's very cool. Is there anything else you would like to share?
Um, Not necessarily, only that my third book is coming out in June. So
Yay!
really, really excited. That one's called Love on a Ledge. And so it's features rock climbers, which is another near and dear activity to my heart. So um, yeah, I'm excited to share that with the world.
Awesome. And is it available for pre-order now?
Yeah, it is on Amazon right now.
Cool. I
So
will
I'm
link
I
all that stuff.
I'd like to get the paperback versions up for pre-order on Etsy, but there's always things to iron out and figure out, and and all of that. But
Well, thank you so much.
thank you, Nicole. This was fun.
Yeah, right? It's not so scary. I really enjoyed my talk with Katherine. It was so nice to hear some of the ups and downs that she's gone through as a self published author. I really admire her bravery and the way she kind of gave herself a time limit and decided to bet on herself. I think that that is amazing and inspiring. And I'm just so impressed with her and her body of work. If you have not read the Stranded in Leavenworth series, please do. If you're a romance reader at all, you're gonna love it. It's wonderful and delightful. I really hoped you enjoyed listening to this interview and that you got something out of it to apply to your own writing. If you did enjoy this interview, please consider rating or subscribing or commenting wherever you listen to this podcast. It really helps other writers find us. So thank you so much, and I will see you again next time.